Everybody, welcome to the Red Devil Experience. How y'all doing? We are here live with the Red Devil Daily, where we talk about the latest Manchester United news and rumors over the past 24 hours. We have a lot of recently breaking stuff surrounding Erik Ten Hag's managerial position. News coming out that apparently INEOS and Manchester United have held secret talks behind Erik Ten Hag's back. So we're going to get into that. We also have some updates about Joshua Zirkzee because there's rumors surrounding that he may want to leave the club. And we also have a couple other updates about Alphonso Davies and a wonder kid that Manchester United have been scouting and tracking. And apparently they are ready to make the move to sign this kid up and bring him to Manchester United. So it's going to be a good show. Please smash the like button for me if you can, because it helps the channel grow and we greatly appreciate it. And if you want to become part of the community, subscribe and make sure you turn on the notifications and the bell icon so you know when we go live and you never miss a show. But we are going to get straight into the show, and we're going to start off with this latest breaking news and rumor coming from Chris Wheeler, who is a credible journalist. He has said that apparently Manchester United have held secret talks with a number of managers over replacing Erik Ten Hag. This was as recent as the past week or so, week or two ago, when I guess there was talk about him pretty much getting sacked. He's apparently still fighting for his job. I think the circumstances kind of dictate that as well. I mean, you know, we've only been back for 2 matches. We got 1 win in the league, a draw in the Europa League. We're still in a very bad position in the Europa League. And it can go very, very wrong very, very quickly depending on the results that we get in the next few matches going forward. We obviously have West Ham on the weekend on Sunday in 2 days' time. We're also going to do, Erik Ten Hag did a press conference and said some things. So we're going to get into that as well. But to continue the secret manager talks that apparently have been held by INEOS, apparently Ruben Amorim, Edin Terzic, who was the former Borussia Dortmund manager, are on the list of potential targets to replace Erik Ten Hag at Manchester United. Thomas Frank is also under strong consideration once again. His football and his style of play that he plays at Brentford really exciting the Manchester United hierarchy. And the update that comes with Xavi is that Manchester United have apparently spoken with Xavi about 10 days ago after a 4-man delegation led by Omar Barada flew to Barcelona. So apparently Omar Barada and 3 other people within the United hierarchy that haven't been listed, so it could be anybody that's in the hierarchy or that works under Omar Barada, have apparently flew out to go speak with Xavi about the managerial position at Manchester United. You know, this is interesting news. I find it interesting that it's come out now. It didn't come out after they held talks, you know, about Erik Ten Hag during the international break, and discussed his managerial position. We're getting this news now. You know, I don't know necessarily where he's gotten this information from. But again, we're going to take these things with a grain of salt because we've seen how out of proportionate the news was about that Erik Ten Hag was going to get sacked into the international break. But I find this talk interesting. And the update that comes with Thomas Frank is that Thomas Frank's exciting brand of football has won him a lot of admirers at Old Trafford. So maybe there is a little bit more concrete stuff going in or backing Thomas Frank maybe becoming the manager of Manchester United. Lions is in here, Lyle's in here, my buddy Daniel is in here. Good to see you all in here. Lions, they got your man. They got your man up on the screen. Once again, they got him back into the news. We thought it was over since he lost the audition. But apparently, according to Chris Wheeler, he's still in contention to take the Manchester United job. He's still well liked at Manchester United within the hierarchy and other people. You know, I don't... You know, I wasn't expecting to go live either, but I kind of felt like this coming from Chris Wheeler, we kind of had to go live. And there's also a couple other interesting news that that came out today. I thought it was going to be a little bit more quieter than it actually is, so I decided to go live. But yeah, your buddy Thomas Frank is still in contention here. You know, the dream still lives on for you, because apparently he's still very, very well liked. And he is highly being considered apparently on the 4-man list. I mean, just to go back a couple slides, Ruben Amorim and Tezerich are on the list of potential targets to replace Erik Ten Hag, along with Thomas Frank, who is also under strong consideration. Lions has stopped his movie for this. I mean, yeah, you know, I was doing some other things, and I seen this pop up, and I said, we're gonna have to go live to at least talk about this and discuss it. Whether, you know, you want to buy into it, whether you think it's true, whether you think it's a bunch of BS, you know, that's what this show is about. It's about news, it's about rumors, and we have a discussion surrounding, you know, surrounding it. We don't have a whole, you know, we don't buy into it 100%, but we talk about it in certain ways and have a discussion around what we are given. Because, you know, we are fans, and that's all we can really do. You know, we can't, there's no way for us to really find out if what Chris Wheeler is saying or who his source is, if it's 100% true or if it's false. You know, we don't know his sources, but we do take into account things that he does put out, because he does have a very credible name. He is considered a credible journalist. Now, this update that follows into this is that, and this is coming from Dean Jones Saka, who is considered by the aggregators as sort of a tier 2 source. He's not really a tier 1. I think they put Chris Wheeler more in a tier 1 situation. Dean Jones would come into as a tier 2 situation, or a tier 2 journalist. And he's come with this update shortly following what we've just got. This is the latest update to follow up into the managerial situation, saying that the reality at Manchester United is that the hierarchy want Erik Ten Hag to succeed. They are keen to avoid the disruption and financial burden of making a mid-season managerial change. He follows that up by saying that while United are hopeful of keeping Erik Ten Hag for the rest of the season, his tenure could still come under scrutiny if it becomes obvious that progress is not being made and he does not make up the ground to ensure his team are within reasonable distance of the top flight's European positions. And I kind of like this update, even though him being a tier 2 journalist per se, or tier 2 source of Manchester United news. I do like this update because I think this kind of hits the head on the nail a little bit more. It's a little bit less speculative, and I think it's a lot more in the middle. I think it's a lot less, you know, I think it's a lot less just not, you know, it's more grounded in terms of the fact that, you know, I've kind of held this position and this opinion ever since the whole Ten Hag talk has really gone on, that, you know, he may lose his job. I think it's really somewhere in the middle. I think it's really based on the performances and the results that Manchester United get going forward. I think that will ultimately dictate whether he is going to get sacked. I think it's been clear and obvious that INEOS and Omar Barada and co and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think they obviously are, you know, a little bit reluctant to sack him. I think they are trying to stay behind him. I think they're trying to give him time in to succeed and stuff like that. But they can only give him so much time and so much backing based off of what happens on the pitch and the results that we get at the end of matches. You know, if we don't get a certain amount of results going forward, they will, in my opinion, be forced into a move that they would have to sack him, because football is a performance-based game and you gotta get the points, you gotta get the wins, you gotta put yourself in a good position. And I think this update by Dean Jones, I think really kind of just hits it straightforward. I mean, I do think that, you know, the hierarchy have shown that they want Ten Hag to succeed, because they have decided not to sack him. They could have sacked him in many people's minds. In other people's minds, they should have sacked him already, and they haven't. And I think there's different reasons for that. I think one of them is probably, of course, the financial burden, because they're going to have to pay a good amount of money to, number one, sack Erik Ten Hag, but then also depending on the manager that they would go and hire to succeed Ten Hag may also cost them more money, depending on the likes of Thomas Frank or Ruben Amorim, because they are both managers. Xavi is obviously one that he is free. Thomas Tuchel was one that was free, but he is no longer available because obviously he's gone to England and taken the England managerial role. And I believe the former Borussia Dortmund manager, I believe he's not in a job either, so he is free. So there is some candidates that, you know, won't necessarily cost Manchester United money in terms of having to buy them out, but somebody like a Thomas Frank or a Ruben Amorim is going to cost Manchester United money. And obviously, if you get to that point, Manchester United or INEOS, they obviously want to select who is the best candidate in their opinion, and their best candidate may be somebody that is already in a job, and therefore they would have to buy them out, and it might cost them more money. Also, you know, it would cause some disruption, obviously, because changing the manager in mid-season, you know, it's not no easy task. Obviously, we do usually see a managerial bounce in a lot of different teams and a lot of different aspects when a new manager does come and take over, but that's not always 100% the case. It's not always 100% a guarantee. It could really be a struggle. You know, the new manager has to come in. He's got to adjust to life in Manchester United. It's a different beast. He's got to get to know the players. We're in the midst of a season. There's a lot of matches coming. You know, we have a lot of matches we're playing. We're playing almost 3 matches a week at this point. And there's a lot of work to be done that, you know, the new manager might not be able to really fully get adapted to as quickly as he would like, as, let's say, if he started, you know, the job in the summer where things are a lot more quiet. You can plan a lot more. You can do a lot more things that you can't really do at this moment in time because you are in the midst of a season and there's a lot of matches, so there's only so much you can do. So it could be very disruptive. It could not be very beneficial to go down that path, as bad as it may possibly get under Erik Ten Hag. You know, and I also think that, you know, the board and INEOS are, you know, hopeful of Erik Ten Hag, or at least keeping him for the rest of the season. I think for them, if they were to switch managers, the ideal situation would be for Erik Ten Hag to do at least a decent enough job to put us in a good position in you know, all aspects, whether that's the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, and the Europa League. Hopefully getting back into maybe the Champions League as well. And then if they decide that they need to change the manager, they would change the manager in the summer, because I think it's just it's easier. It's an easier thing to do. And I think that's kind of what they would be hopeful for. But I think he does hit the point very good that, you know, if it becomes obvious that the progress is not being made, and he kind of, you know, loses time in that aspect, and he kind of, you know, we're sort of going backwards and we're losing ground on the teams above us in all aspects of competitions, then I think they, like I've been saying, they will be forced into making a managerial change that they necessarily don't want to make, or that they don't want to do. Lyle saying, if true, I am not surprised after last night. That choice of a starting 11 plus the weird decisions Erik Ten Hag has been making, yeah, faith is low. Well, I think certainly when he does things like that, it doesn't necessarily help him per se, you know, in the aspect, in the view of the eyes of the fans, and the backing that he would receive from fans. I think it really does hurt him there, because I think he does a lot of things that majority of the Manchester United fans, you know, I think in the beginning, we've let it slide. We let it slip because we wanted to see if it would work. You know, we tried to give him a chance on it. You know, we're 3 seasons into him. He's done this numerous amount of times. And I think a lot of United fans, are kind of annoyed and fed up with some of the decisions that he makes. And it does go against the majority, and it kind of flies into the face of the fan base, the things that he is choosing to decide to do. One of the things that has angered Manchester United fans, and I think, you know, rightfully so, for the arguments that they are making, is you know, just the things surrounding Diallo, where Diallo looked really good at the start of the season, and now he's basically almost disappeared. You know, prior to last night, you know, he had 3 matches where he didn't get any game time at all. It was going to be a 4th if it wasn't for Anthony getting injured and, you know, forcing a change into which Diallo had to come on because he was the only option available to come on for Anthony. So and you know, just questionable and puzzling things that he's choosing to do. You know, Ray saying change the manager, this is never going to stop, we have a new manager, start over again after 1.5 to 5 years. Well, I do get that, and I understand that, but I think with INEOS, if they do decide to change the manager, where they can stop that from happening is it depends on the manager that they pick and choose. Because I think there's certain managers, like a Kieran McKenna, even a Ruben Amorim, who is sort of on the youngish side. I think, you know, appearances do have an impact, and also the type of manager they really go for. I think, you know, if United went for, per se, let's say if we ended up getting a Hansi Flick, or we got a Carlo Ancelotti, I think the expectations for Manchester United to succeed, you know, fairly quickly would be much higher than if you get a less experienced manager to them and a younger manager. I think, you know, you could sort of, I guess, spin the optics of, you know, this is a younger manager, he's a little bit less experienced, but he is key and vital to the project. The problem is that, you know, again, at the same time, they have to show signs of improvement. They have to show progression. They have to show that we are growing and actually building something. And, you know, under Ten Hag's time, it is very difficult to try and say that we are growing and we are improving in a lot of aspects. I mean, his first season has clearly been his best season. Second season clearly went backwards, and now you can say, you know, he had injuries and stuff like that. But the third season has started underneath the second season, and the second season was marred by injuries. This third season, we don't have as many injuries as we had, and it seems like we have still taken a step backwards instead of improving on last season. So there's a big problem in terms of trying to back Erik Ten Hag in that aspect. You know, you need somebody to show you that there is progression, and while everything cannot be perfect, and I think that's understandable, and obviously there will be flaws, you know, under any manager, and I think there's a lot of things at the moment that are an argument of, or in favor of, Erik Ten Hag, you know, not doing a good enough job, and the club is not progressing in a proper way, because there is a lot of negatives. I mean, for me, just number one, you know, I don't like the kind of football we are playing. I don't see a real good, you know, style that we play, and I don't really see an improvement per se in terms of what we are doing. We are still struggling for goals. We've struggled for goals basically all 3 seasons under Erik Ten Hag. Now, we had a good period in the first season under Erik Ten Hag, you know, of scoring goals, but there was some moments in that season where we did struggle to score goals. I think the defense in that first season certainly helped out the goal difference, but it wasn't, when you compare it to the top tier performing teams, we were still far away from that. And then last season, we certainly struggled to score goals, and obviously there was, you know, the whole thing of the fact that we only really had Rasmus Højlund as a striker. Now we have Joshua Zirkzee, and we're going to talk about Joshua Zirkzee because he's really come under scrutiny after yesterday's appearance. It was sort of bubbling prior to that anyway. And we have to talk about that because, you know, there has been rumors, there has been talks that, you know, apparently he might leave Manchester United and he's not really enjoying life there. So we're going to get into that as well. And Richard has joined as well. It's good to see you, Richard. I'm glad you're here. And Lyons is in here saying, that are any of those candidates really any better than Erik Ten Hag? Like, honestly, well, I don't know. It's a good question, Lyons. And I don't think anybody can per se say that, you know, if you get a certain manager that this man is going to succeed, because there's no really proof in the pudding for that. Number one, you know, INEOS is new at Manchester United, and we don't really know, you know, how the project they're building is actually going to go and how successful it's going to be. But I think the most determining factor is that, you know, obviously we've had like about 5 different managers and none of them have really been successful. I think Jose Mourinho being probably our most successful manager to date, post Ferguson. But I do think that there is certain indications in terms of certain managers. You know, I think somebody like I'm gonna butcher his name, but Tezic, that was the former Borussia Dortmund manager, who did an excellent job to get them to the Champions League final last season, albeit he did lose, but it is Real Madrid. You know, I think somebody like Terzic, I think he plays a good style of football. He played a good style of football at Borussia Dortmund. The only thing that concerns me is that whatever manager comes, they actually have to bring their style of football with them. Because as we've seen with Erik Ten Hag, we wanted that style of football that he had at Ajax. We were watching that Ajax team play, and we were like, people fell in love with it because they were like, that resembles what United used to play. That's kind of the football that we want to see at Manchester United. But he's come to Manchester United, and he hasn't tried to play that style of football for whatever his reasons may be. If he argues that, you know, it's a different league, he doesn't have the personnel to necessarily play that. But for me, I you know, if you're coming in and you're starting brand new, I think you know, his mistake was that you might have not had the personnel to play it, but you should have done it anyway, because you could have gotten the personnel or went for the specific personnel to play that. I think 3 years in, you know, you're too far too late to try and do that. He's set with the plan and he's going to follow it through. And it will either succeed or fail. Right now, it is teetering on failure. But yeah, I mean, there are certain aspects. I think even Ruben Amorim plays some good football as well at Sporting. They do, you know, they play good in Europe as well. So there's certain aspects to certain managers that obviously the football, you would expect it to be different. You would expect us to see us play in a different style, which I think people believe would lead to improved results, because I think the football we're playing now is not a winning style of football. And I think that's clear with the evidence in the fact that we are struggling to win matches. We are struggling to score goals. So, you know, it doesn't mean that one of these guys would come and bring us to the promised land. It doesn't mean that one of these guys would actually ultimately be successful, but it would be a change in direction in the way we are going. And it would be a change in the kind of football that we are seeing. And I think many people at this stage believe, you know, we need a new manager because the style of football that that is being played under Erik Ten Hag is not the football that we believe in. It's not the football that we think is going to really make us challenge or be successful for. And it's not really the type of football that, you know, we want to see at Manchester United anyway. I mean, yesterday, you know, compared to Brentford, you know, it's 2 different teams and 2 different setups, but you know, one of the things is we change our style of play, and we change, you know, the way we play and our shape based on kind of who we're playing. And I don't really see how Manchester United can have a solid identity and a solid philosophy if we're constantly changing the way we play because of the opponent. I mean, teams like Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Real Madrid, even Barcelona, etc., they don't change their identity of how they play on the pitch, because of who they're playing. But yet we are doing that. So I think there are arguments. Now, does it mean that they're going to be successful? Does it mean that they can win 2 trophies in 2 years? I mean, that's to be seen. We got to see what kind of job they're going to do. But I think there is strong arguments for why, people want a change in the manager. And I think there is an argument, against, Erik Ten Hag keeping his job, certainly. And Lions saying, I mean, we won 2 trophies in 2 years. I think Ten Hag might have mentioned that before, and that's something obviously he has to cling on to because it is important for his aspect. And I think Ten Hag, to that point, the ability, I think, he's obviously shown it. He can get us to win trophies. I think something like, there's always a comparison between Solskjaer's football and Ten Hag's football, and some people prefer, and look at Solskjaer's football and say, look at the way we played. It was better than what we're seeing now. But the problem that Solskjaer had is that he couldn't get us over the line to win a trophy. I think if Solskjaer ended up winning one of those trophies, he might even still be in a job. He might have still not got sacked. But the fact is that we got to, I forgot, what was it, 1 or 2 finals or something like that, and he failed to win the cup. And ultimately, then the 3rd season, when it kind of just went to shit, no trophies, and then it going to shit, ultimately led him to getting the sack. I think Ten Hag is still in the job right now because he has managed to win 2 trophies. And last season was bad, and this season has started off very bad, and he can still turn it around, but I just don't see so many positive indications. I was very excited against Brentford because I was happy that he put Garnacho on the left, Rashford on the right. I was asking for Rashford to go on the right. I think, obviously Rasmus Højlund needs to be starting up top and stuff like that. And I just like the directness in the way we played. And I don't understand why we can't just try to do that because, even if you look at Arsenal, and you look at Arteta, like they always play their football. They always play their football, no matter who they really play. They play their football, and it's always the same. And it's like, why can't we play the way we played against Brentford? Why can't we just play like that? Obviously, do tactical adjustments as be needed, and maybe set up certain slight instructions to help you out defensively. But why can't we play in that manner that we played? Why can't we play with that kind of attitude? Obviously some of it has to come with the players, but I think constantly changing the personnel and the sort of the setup in the system isn't helping us. And Richard saying, yeah, Erik Ten Hag says we're doing well in Europa League, maybe for Ajax, Eric, but not for Manchester United. I mean, not even for Ajax. Not even for Ajax. I mean, look what he did with Ajax. He did much better in Europe with Ajax than he's done with Manchester United in all 3 of his seasons. We have 1 win in 11 European matches. That's a terrible statistic. That's a terrible record. It's an unacceptable record for Manchester United, no matter how bad we've been over the past, few years or 11 years. A club like Manchester United should not be doing 1 win in 11 European competitions. That's absolutely awful. So there's a lot of things that go backwards against Ten Hag right now, and it seems to be increasing as we go by the matches. I mean, the negatives are certainly outweighing the positives at this point. I think at one point, it was fair to say that the positives were outweighing the negatives, but the way we're going in the direction we're going, yeah, I mean, he needs answers quick, and he needs it, ASAP. Lyle saying, yeah, apparently Wilcox might be there for a reason. He was not signed. And Richard saying, look, Erik Ten Hag is not a bad manager, but he is not a Manchester United manager. And it could very well be so. I mean, there's certain aspects, and we've talked about this many times before, not everybody is meant for Manchester United. Manchester United is a totally different beast to anything else. I mean, you know, even if you listen to Jose Mourinho speaking, he obviously still has a love and admiration for the club, and that kind of sort of thing, you know, happens through everybody that kind of passes Manchester United, regardless of what happens to you at that point. Obviously, barring somebody like Di Maria and like Alexis Sanchez or something like that, and maybe even a Jadon Sancho, but you know, something there happens that, like, you know, there is just like, it is just this different sort of thing compared to any other club. And you know, Jose was more successful at Chelsea. He was more successful at Real Madrid, but he still talks about Manchester United in such like a highly respectful way. Um, and I think he had numerous amount of problems with the people above him and the players as well. But you know, it takes a certain type of character, a certain type of person to come to Manchester United and actually be successful. And you know, maybe he's not. And you know, again, Erik Ten Hag was appointed manager by the previous hierarchy regime, so maybe it was the wrong choice. Maybe it wasn't the best choice that we could have gone with. Maybe we could have gone with somebody else that obviously fit the fabric of the club a little bit more. But I don't think he's necessarily done like, he hasn't done a horrible job, because he has won 2 trophies in 2 seasons. But it's there's other factors that, you know, when we look at it, and really, to me, it's really the playing style and in the match, in the manner in which we are playing matches. I mean, how many times? I think there was a statistic yesterday, basically stating, in all 3 of the European the Europa League matches we played, we've taken the lead in all of them, and we failed to come out at the end of it with a win. I mean, those certain things, we can't be having them, and they need to be fixed. And I think Erik Ten Hag has touched on this today, because he has done a press conference, and we're going to get into that in a short bit of time. But and we could talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Rajat's in here as well. Rajat, good to see you. Richard saying, did not work for Dave Sexton, did not work for Franco Farrell, did not work for David Moyes, did not work for LVG. Yeah, you know, we do have a history of that, as well as it not really, you know, coming in. Rajat saying he doesn't want Terzic or Xavi. Well, I'm not too like high on Xavi, because I don't think his time at Barcelona really went well, and I think you seen the likes of somebody like Hansi Flick and what he's doing at Barcelona, and I think you see like the difference between him and Xavi. But I did kind of like, you know, Terzic, and what he did with Borussia Dortmund last season. I think he is a good coach, and a good manager, and I think he could bring a good style of football. But I just don't know if it would be something that, you know, I'm just unsure about a lot of these candidates, because there's no proof in the pudding that any of them are going to be able to succeed. I mean, you know, if we were to get maybe like an Ancelotti, or, you know, like a Hansi Flick, or like maybe even a Zinedine Zidane, albeit Zidane is probably a little bit different than them, but you know, I could give a more stronger opinion on it. But all of these managers kind of being linked to Manchester United, you can't really say if they're going to be able to improve Manchester United to the point that we want to see them at. So, you know, yeah, I think you know, it's just it's a difficult position we find ourselves in, and again, we're gonna have to take it match by match to really see what comes out of this, because you know, Ten Hag technically can still turn it around, but again, it can fall to pieces, and basically implode, and you know, looking from what Dean Jones is saying, I do agree with this whole thing here. I think this is really the crux of the situation that is going on right now. And Axe has joined us now as well. Mike Bloody Smalling. Yeah, that one's but We could talk about Xerxes, and then if there's any updates, because while we've gone live, we might have gotten some updates. We could circle back to the whole managerial thing. But this came surrounding the news that Joshua Xerxes apparently was not enjoying Manchester United. He was regretting his move to Manchester United, and he may have wanted to leave Manchester United. Fabrizio Romano came out early in the day and basically said that he reports that the reports that Joshua Xerxes is thinking of leaving Manchester United are false. We had some more updates from different sources saying that Joshua Xerxes believes in his qualities and wants to establish himself, and he sees himself as the number one striker. Rumors about his intention to leave the club are fake news. And we also had this update saying that Manchester United are more than happy to wait for Joshua Xerxes to develop the same way they have done with Rasmus Højlund. And I just wanted to touch on this because, again, we've talked about this, and we were critical of him yesterday. I think he had a really bad performance. It was very sloppy. It wasn't good. But again, I think our fan base needs to keep in mind that this has to be a developmental period and season for him. I don't think, as I mentioned before, he clearly wasn't necessarily ready to leave Bologna. We kind of got him early. I think we kind of got him ahead of the game. And I don't think many people think of it in this aspect in the fan base. There's the ones that are overtly attacking him and criticizing him. For me, I seen somebody saying that yesterday somebody said that they don't want to see Joshua Xerxes play a single minute until he could do the basics. I think that's a little bit harsh. And while I understand the gist of it, because he is struggling to even do the basics on the pitch, him not playing a single minute isn't going to help him develop and grow. I don't think really the rotation in which we should be doing in the manner is, I don't think Joshua Xerxes should be starting matches right now. And I don't think he should be playing the majority of minutes, kind of like he did yesterday. I understand we have to rotate Højlund, but we need Højlund to play a little bit more than what he did yesterday. I personally, if you have to rotate Højlund, I would have tried to play Højlund for 60, 55 minutes and then put in Joshua Xerxes and, try and get ahead in the match and try and win the match so that you could put on Xerxes for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, etc. And I think that's kind of what we have to do going forward. I don't think he should be starting because he's clearly not ready and he's clearly struggling and he's kind of being thrown into the pit, of fire right now because what he's doing on the pitch is not an easy watch. It's very ugly and I think it's only hurting him because he needs time. Even like Rasmus, he did suffer a bit of that. I think Xerxes suffering, more to the extent of, getting attacked by our own fans. But I think, Rasmus suffered a little bit of that, but he was able to get through it at the end. But we didn't really have a choice because he was really our only striker. It was him or Rashford. I think, with Xerxes, you don't have to do what you did to Rasmus to him because we have Rasmus and you can use Rasmus for the majority of time while still being able to rotate and manage minutes. So I think it's something that Erik Ten Hag has to really get a hold on. And Rajat saying he did it right, to be honest, not that bad. Well, for me personally, I thought he probably performed the worst out of almost the whole team. I think Maz didn't have a good game at all either, but I think he was definitely in the top 3 out of the players that performed. And the stark contrast between him and Højlund, the things that Højlund is able to do that Joshua Xerxes clearly cannot do, is just like it's miles, it's gaps. I mean, like it's a huge difference. There's so many things. I mean, there was one instance that comes to mind the other day where Garnacho was making a run. We were basically on a counterattack. Garnacho had loads of space in front of him, and it could have been a good goal-threatening opportunity. Xerxes has the ball in his feet, and he decides to hold on to it instead of, releasing Garnacho. And then he gives it to Garnacho once Garnacho has lost the space and the defenders come back into position. You know, and there was a couple passes and there was a couple touches and there was a couple decision making from Xerxes that, you know, if there was Erasmus Højlund there, I don't think he's making those same mistakes per se. So, yeah, you know, his performance yesterday wasn't good. But again, I'm not saying like, you know, there's people out there saying send him back, he's shit, he's dog shit, he's a flop already. You know, I'm not saying that. I think the kid can develop into a good striker and player for Manchester United, but he clearly obviously needs time, and I think it's going to take at least a season because I think again we kind of got ahead of the curve. I think he needed another season at Bologna before he could really move to sort of a bigger club with bigger expectations and bigger demands. But we kind of jumped ahead of that. We jumped the gun on it to get him before he got to that point because there would be more competition. His price tag would definitely certainly be more expensive. So we have to kind of take that into account. And I'm you know, I'm still here trying to back him. And I'm gonna try and protect him, but I will, you know, call it like it is. And you know, Richard saying that Xerxes is not a striker certainly at the moment, and he's not. He's nowhere near really the level of what we need. And certainly not to start. And certainly not to take Rasmus's position at all. Sandy's saying, good evening. You guys, I told you already that we are just wasting time to talk about our team, how is performing. The coach is not taking us anywhere. I mean, it certainly seems like it's stalled, Sandy. But you know, at the moment, we can't really do anything about it. All we can do is talk about it and discuss it. We can't, you know, we can't remove the manager. We can't sack him. That's up to INEOS. And they clearly are trying to back him and give him time. And see if he could turn it around, but it's not looking very likely. And you know, so Classico might be tomorrow. No, we should definitely the Lions. We should definitely not go for Chris Wood. Absolutely not. He does not fit the bill in any way. 32. What futures does that hold? If we want a more experienced striker, we should get somebody around the age of 26 or so. So that they could be here for at least the next 6 years. And bring their, you know, they're already developed and a little bit more experienced and stuff. We should not be going for players at the age of 32. I mean, we've already made that mistake. I mean, look at the likes of Cavani. You know, even Ronaldo per se, and even Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And while some of them obviously did good, or they did, you know, good, you know, what did it really lead to? They only get a year older and they only decline as the years go on. You need somebody that's in we should never get Cristiano back. That chapter is closed. It's absolutely closed. It obviously didn't work out that way, and Cristiano wouldn't want to come back anyway. With the things that have gone on, I mean, he heavily criticized the club in many different aspects, and I think a lot of it he was correct in terms of the fact that, you know, there's a lot of things behind the scenes that the Glazers didn't take care of, that we kind of let rot and then deteriorate, and it is part of the reason as to why we are the club that we are now and not the club that we used to be. You know. Or Richard's boy Garasay 28. You know, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo is not a player and that we need that would go into this project. I think we have two young good strikers that are for the future. Obviously one has been here for his second season now. He's a little bit more developed. He looks very good. And he looks like he's continuing to develop in a very excellent way. The other one is obviously clearly just got here. He's clearly obviously struggling. It's going to take him more time. But I think the move for Manchester United, as I said again, you need to get somebody that is a little bit more developed and a little bit more stronger in their game. But they cannot be too old in terms of a player's age. They need to be a good age where they can provide you basically immediate impact, but also have some sort of a future, you know, to progress with the team that we need to build. So, you know, if you get a 25, 26-year-old, they can give you at least minimum 5+ years with the club if they are, good as well. There's no real future with Cristiano. We're not going for a title. If we get Cristiano, there's no future in getting somebody that is like a 32-year-old and kind of basically at the end of their career. There's no future in it. There's no real we would have to sign them and then replace them. So what good is that for the project? It's not like we're in a position as a per se, like I would say somebody like maybe like similar to an Arsenal, where they've challenged for the title in the past 2 seasons, and maybe they need that one final push, and you go for it in that season. So you get somebody around that age, sort of kind of what we did with Van Persie when we signed him from Arsenal in that season. We kind of had the team there. We needed that one guy. So it was okay to sign somebody Van Persie like that because we were going to make the push. We're not even anywhere near going to make the push for it. So we have to get somebody that's going to be here so that they can build and grow and continue with the project. Man United fans wanted Cavani and Ibra out because of their age, and now they want Xerxes out because he is young and inexperienced. Yeah, I mean, it's always different aspects of the fan base. Sometimes it's the same because sometimes we have fans that are just, they just talk shit just to talk shit for attention. But I think the two is they are linked, but they are different in different ways. I mean, the issues that surrounded like the likes of Zlatan and Cavani, obviously they were a little bit older. They would get injured. They wouldn't be always available. Obviously Xerxes hasn't gotten injured. I don't think he has a bad injury record prior anyway. He might have a slight injury record, but I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's anything really worrying. But he is young, and yeah, there was periods and times, Lions, where people did get fed up with Cavani and Zlatan, and they did heavily criticize them, and they did want them out of the club. Obviously, if you look at anything now, people kind of do this revisionism because they forget their feelings at the moment, at that current period. And they always talk so highly about Cavani and Zlatan Ibrahimovic and what a legend they are. But a lot of them weren't saying that at that period of time when things weren't going well. And it's sort of similar to right now. I mean, the club is in a bad place, performance-wise and results-wise. We're in a bad place. Couple that with the fact that every time Joshua Xerxes has kind of gone on the pitch, he just looks really off of it. So it's not something that helps the current situation, and I think he's getting the brunt of it, honestly, because it's not really all his fault. Like, obviously he has to develop his game and he's got to do better things, but he's not the sole reason as to why we can't win a match or why we can't play necessarily good football. That is more of the team aspect, but it's just everything is kind of mushed together. And there's a lot of negativity surrounding Manchester United, and he's getting hit with the negative feelings from fans. It's just another thing to piss off fans at the current situation. So yeah, I remember it quite, there's always discussions. I mean, there's always discussions. I remember it quite fondly. Like, there was a lot of people that loved Zlatan and Cavani, and they loved them. And even with Ronaldo, I think Ronaldo is the perfect reason. You remember how divided the fan base was over Cristiano Ronaldo. There was people that were absolutely, in for Ronaldo. They loved him. Ronaldo could do no wrong. He was right in everything he did. And then the other part of the fan base was 100% divided in that Ronaldo was toxic, Ronaldo was a problem, Ronaldo had to go, Ronaldo wasn't good enough. This always happens. But the thing is that those players are at the end of their careers. They're older. This is a younger kid. He still has his whole career ahead of him. He can still develop and become a very good striker. Like, people are talking about Xerxes in a manner of like, he is 27, he's supposed to be this set and finished product. He was, he's expected to get 15, 20 goals in one season, and he's playing like, an under 15 player or something like that. And it's just not the case. I mean, he can still obviously develop. He can still become a very good striker, but he needs time. And the people are talking about him in a manner of like they expect him to be, I don't know, like if you went and bought an Osman or something like that. Like they expect a finished article. And I don't understand really why they're talking about him in that manner, because clearly that's not what we bought. That's not what he was ever going to be. And even Rasmus Højlund, while he showed encouraging, signs in his first season, even he struggled and went through a period where he didn't look very good and he struggled to score goals. And, and especially coming from the Serie A to English Premier League team, it's always going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. It's first of all a different type of football, and it's just different levels. And Capello actually has said something about Xerxes, and obviously Capello being an Italian manager, and he managed England, of course, so he knows both sides and both sets of the culture. And he basically said, go watch Joshua Xerxes play in the Premier League and tell me if he seems like the same player we admired in Bologna. In Italy, he did what he wanted. In England, he doesn't even have time to think about the play before the ball is stolen from him. And I think that's one of the things that is a problem for Joshua Xerxes, is that his pace, and I don't know, we can't necessarily give him pace. We can't necessarily train pace. But I think in certain things, in terms of being quicker on decision making, he does have to improve in that aspect. His personal speed, you can't really do anything about that. That was the same problem that Harry Maguire had and other players had. But one of the things that is certainly hurting him and certainly making him look worse than I think he actually is up to his current ability is the fact that he is slow. He is slow. We need to be able to use him in a way that we can kind of negate the fact that he is slow. Because he is slow. I think part of the reason why people are upset with his performances is because when you watch him, he is very slow in many different aspects. His speed is slow. His decision making in terms of making passes or being alert or aware that somebody is coming in to make a tackle on him and react to the player, whether that's making a pass away or making a move on the pitch, he is slow and he is losing the ball a lot. And I think that's one of the areas that he kind of has to, like, his personal speed in terms of running, you can't really do much about that. You can try and improve it, but he's a big guy, and he's never going to be like a quickster in that aspect. I don't think he'll ever reach the speed of, in terms of what I'm saying about like Rasmus Højlund. But in terms of decision making, he can be a lot more sharper. He can be a lot more quicker in the decisions that he makes. Like, he needs to be a lot more alert that players aren't going to give him as much time as he's gotten in Italy when you get on the ball and you have a lot more time to make a decision of what you're going to do with the ball. So I think in that aspect, he needs to develop in that area. And I think he can develop in that area because I think it is possible to develop a player in that area. But obviously, it's going to take some more time. And Richard saying we will come good. I had to wait 26 years from one league title to the next. Well, I think at some point we have to, because I think that's just the cycle of football. And I think if you look at it, really any team, I think there's always a cycle of football, and I think it will come at some point. I don't know when, but I think we've already gone through 11 years of not being good. So if you're talking about a process or a period of time, I think we're already well into that period of time. So at some point you will have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But how longer is the tunnel and how much more darkness is there? We don't actually know. But I think, if you keep going forward, eventually it will be some light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, but I think, Capello kind of hits the head of the nail there, is that there's stark differences. And I mean, look at, even for Scott McTominay has done the reverse, and he's gone from playing at Manchester United to playing in Italy. And the Italians absolutely love him, and the Italians can't believe we gave up a player like Scott McTominay. But I think Scott McTominay is able to perform way better in the Italian league than certain performances that he's done, at Manchester United in the Premier League. I think the stark difference in pace in both leagues, I think, helps certain aspects of players. I think Scott, being a bigger player and not as quick, I think he can excel in the Serie A. Whereas sometimes in a Premier League match, it's not really good for him, and he does struggle. And then also, even in European matches, he's still playing for an Italian side that's going to play that's going to play Italian football. So the system will suit him better. It won't leave him exposed. Whereas we are playing English football, or trying to play some type of an English football in an English league, where the pace is a lot quicker, the strength is a lot stronger, and you don't really necessarily have that time. And then we also play in a system that is not really beneficial to Xerxes' strengths at this moment. So he is obviously going to struggle. Axe saying the Italian league is way slower, and it absolutely is. And look at Mkhitaryan. I remember I saw a match of Inter after our match against Tottenham. God, Inter had so much space and time to think. And it is, but it's even the system and the styles. I mean, even if you go into a European match, Inter's going to play an Italian type against whoever they play. AC Milan's going to play an Italian way. So they obviously fit that system regardless better than if they played somewhere else. And Stephanie is in here, so good to see you, Steph. Glad you could join us. Now, these are two last things that kind of revolve around transfers. But remember how we did talk about Alphonso Davies a couple shows ago, and there was an update about him. Well, there's been another update around Alphonso Davies, and again, coming from Plettigol, which is the German journalist, I would say. And again, we've gotten this update about Alphonso Davies, and the update follows as Manchester United's interest in Alphonso Davies is becoming more concrete. United have been gathering extensive information on Davies for several days and made an informal inquiry to his camp in recent months. At present, there are no new talks about a contract extension with Bayern Munich. Davies could leave the club as a free agent next summer. So again, Plettigol coming, basically, linking Davies to us, or us to Davies. Again, I think it's fair to be purely or fairly, speculative about this, because I still think that the most likely destination he will end up in is probably the likes of Real Madrid. And, our name has been used a lot of times for multiple different transfers and multiple different reasons. But I still do think that, obviously, because of his quality and his ability, I do think it's somebody that Manchester United is interested in a certain aspect, and I think INEOS would love to bring him in if there is the possibility to bring him in. I just don't think we are so high up on Alphonso Davies' list that we are not the leading candidate to sign him. We are not the one with the highest odds to get him. I think we are interested in him. I think we would love to get him, but I don't think in the manner of which it might be spoken of or written above, I don't think we are the favorites. I don't think we are the most likely to get him. I think that goes to Real Madrid. And, if he doesn't go to Real Madrid, then maybe it opens it up for us. The problem with that is, though, at the same time, is that he will be a free agent. So the likes of any team and any top-tier team can go to him. And certainly a team that is well more established and well more consistent than we have been, with maybe a stronger foundation and a stronger project, can offer him a contract. And therefore, I think we are certainly, in my opinion, I don't even think we're necessarily maybe in the top 5 um for him to for him to choose us, because of just where we are and the circumstances that surround our club. Number one, there's a lot of talk about the manager. um he might get sacked. We don't know what's going on with his future per se. We don't know if he's going to stay here. And that causes a lot of uncertainty, and players like to know who the manager is going to be. So that would have to unfold, and then we would have to determine, if Erik Ten Hag is staying, then he's our manager, and, that will come into consideration. If he gets sacked or he's going to get replaced, then obviously it would matter of what manager we go and get, which could have, an impact on if Davies wants to come to us or not. But, the fact that he will be a free agent, we could, we're not really in this race in a strong position, because, I mean, anybody can go for him. Liverpool could go for him. Arsenal can go for him. Manchester City could go for him. Real Madrid could go for him. Barcelona can go for him. Obviously he's at Bayern, so I don't think he'll go to any other German club. But yeah, just to name a few, once he's a free agent, like, any of these teams can go for him. And I think, when you mention all those teams, they're clearly obviously in a better position for us. So unless Alphonso Davies has some infatuation with Manchester United and it is like a dream for him to play at Manchester United, I think it's going to be very, very hard for Manchester United in our current state to pull Alphonso Davies. Also, there is, the aspect of that we don't know if we're going to end up, number one, in Europe in any form, and number two, most importantly, the Champions League. I think obviously somebody like Alphonso Davies, and many players, they want to go to a club that is basically guaranteed to be in the Champions League. They want to try and win the Champions League. They want to be in the Champions League and play in the Champions League. So, we're not in that position. We're not really in a position of strength. Our pull to get players like this sort of caliber is very, very weak at the moment. And it's something that INEOS does have to consider as well when they're thinking about the manager and the season, because, if they want to give Erik Ten Hag time, which is what they've chosen to do, and it's, and they want to see if he can succeed, and they want to back him, that's all good. But at some point, they really have to make the decision based on, the best possible outcome for the future of Manchester United, because we desperately need to, number one, at the minimum, be in Europe. And when I say Europe, we can't be in the Conference League. The Conference League, to me, technically, while it's Europe, that's not where you want to be. To go back into Europa is the lesser of two evils, but it's not what we want to do. We wanted to go back in Champions League. We need to go back into Champions League, number one, for credibility and, just to have a little bit more pull, but also a financial aspect. So, I think there's a lot of factors that surround what they choose to do with the manager. And I think, while it would be a dream, and I would absolutely love Alphonso Davies, because I think he's a fantastic player, and I think him coming to Manchester United would uplift the level that we're at by so much, especially when you compare him to the likes of Luke Shaw and Malacia, etc. I do think it's sort of, kind of a fairy tale, because I just don't think it's very likely to happen. Now, obviously, this is something that we're going to have to continue to watch and kind of just see how it progresses as we get closer to when he does become a free agent, because anything can really happen. Rajat doesn't think that he's going to go to Real Madrid. Could be a possibility. Maybe Real Madrid decide that they don't want to go for him. Maybe they don't want him. Madrid pull out. But then we would also have to see, at a time, because Rajat also said that, he doesn't think that he's going to go to any other English team. And maybe right now he might not, but maybe a team makes him an offer, and he decides to join them. I mean, we don't really know, because I don't think he's made any concrete decisions. I think he's playing his his season in Bayern Munich. He's focused on the season. I think when he gets to the summer, him and his agent will sit down and they will review and go over all their options, and they will pick the best option that they believe. But you know, an option or an opportunity can arise itself that hasn't necessarily come up yet, because it's not really that time to put in that work. In terms of, you know, you can't really get him at least until January per se. You can sign him on, you know, he'll have 6 months left and he could probably get an offer then, but he won't come to the club until the summer anyway. So, you know, it's something that we gotta just take as it goes. But you know, I don't think I don't think we're, you know, at the top of the list for sure. I don't think we're in the top 3 or top 5. I think we're below. But it depends who's actually going to be in it and who's actually going to go for him, which will change that list. Axe saying unless they pay him a lot of money, but that will disturb the paycheck cap. Well, there is always that argument that obviously the players and the agents make, that, you know, you aren't paying a transfer fee for me, so therefore you can give me a higher salary because I'm costing you a lot less, and my ability and my, you know, my ability and is high, and you're saving a lot of money in this way because I'm a free agent, therefore I want a higher wage. So that could also be a problem, depending on, you know, because INEOS do seem reluctant to give anybody, you know, 300,000 a week, 250,000 a week. Now they might budge for somebody like an Alphonso Davies because of his ability and, you know, his basically his provenness in terms of, you know, he's played at Bayern Munich, who are considered a top team. He's played in loads of Champions League games, and he's well established in that position. So, you know, they might budge for that, but it could also be a stumbling block in that. And obviously, when you are a free agent like that, it is kind of open to the almost the highest bidder in terms of who's going to offer the most money and the best package, plus coupled with the best project. So, yeah. Lion says he liked how Scott McTominay played. Rajat saying McTominay was crap though. Average midfielder, didn't do that much. And Lions rubbishes that. Listen, McTominay had his periods where he was good, and McTominay had his periods where he was goddamn awful and he was like a ghost. I think he was a good servant for the club, but I don't. But the problem is that we needed somebody at a higher level, but we sort of kind of got rid of him and got somebody in a position that he would in a different position in that midfield. And we kind of need to get in the replacement for McTominay. The point of why people wanted McTominay out was because they were like, he's a decent player at times, or he's a good player at times. He can be fairly inconsistent, and he was sometimes limited in what he can do. Now, obviously, he scored many important goals last season, and he got us a lot of points. But the point of it was we needed to get a more complete midfielder that could be a level above McTominay. But we sold him to get somebody like Ugarte, who actually plays like where Casemiro plays. So we actually need to go and get another midfielder in, you know, kind of that box-to-box role, because McTominay couldn't really do that role. And we figured that out later on. I mean, how many times did we try to play Scott McTominay as a holding midfielder? He wasn't very good at it at Manchester United. Maybe he could do it in the Italian league because it's slower and it's a different type of, you know, thing. But at Manchester United, he wasn't good at that. He wasn't good at holding midfielder. He played very poorly at holding midfielder. When he played box to box, he would have maybe a good game here and there, but a lot of times he would kind of ghost. He really excelled at playing at the number 10, where Bruno plays, and being in and around the box and getting onto a ball and being dangerous in the box. But we you know, that's not what we really needed anyway. Although you might argue that we do need it now because we are struggling for goals, and he was scoring some goals. So, realistically, we do need somebody that kind of can play more of a complete midfielder in some sort of aspect. Ten Hag played McTominay out of position. Well, Ten Hag wasn't the only one that played McTominay out of position. Where did Ali play McTominay? Where did Jose Mourinho play McTominay? You know, they tried to play him as like a holding midfielder or even a box to box. But clearly, obviously, his best position was as a 10. He was the most impactful, and he had probably his best performances as the 10. But we have Bruno, and we're supposed to have Mason Mount. Now, you know, if you were going to say we're going to use McTominay strictly as a 10, then I think it's fair at this point to say we should have kept Scott McTominay and used him as a backup 10 to Bruno Fernandes, then keeping Mason Mount, because Mason Mount is paper mache and he keeps getting injured and he's injury prone. I mean, Mason Mount literally was injured, came back from injury, lasted whatever it was, 20-something minutes, got a cut on his head, then proceeded to post to Instagram that it's just a scratch and he's fine, and we haven't seen him since. So, you know, if you're getting a scratch, according to Mason Mount's own words, and we haven't seen you since that period, then, you know, that's very worrisome, because how can you get a scratch and you've gone missing for 3-4 matches after that? And there's still no sign of you actually coming back into the squad and playing, you know, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, 90 minutes. So, well, I did want McTominay out for the purpose of like how I just explained, is that I think McTominay was fairly limited in his ability. And I do give him credit for the times that he had impacts in the game and scoring goals. But I always wanted a more complete midfielder to replace McTominay. But we haven't really, we didn't really do that, because we needed to get Ugarte to kind of cover Casemiro or take Casemiro's spot and Casemiro become the cover. We still need another midfielder in that aspect. But something we could have done is that we could have kept McTominay, used him as the backup 10, and gotten rid of Mason Mount. But obviously that clearly wasn't something that was probably feasible to do, because they wanted to keep Mason Mount. So, you know, McTominay was a player who done the dirty work, not a skillful player, but could break up play and give you a goal. I think on his day, I mean, even kind of like Amrabat, and this is what I'm kind of saying, like, I think even Amrabat, to keep Amrabat would have been good as well. Like, I don't know how we ended up with the midfield options that we had, and it's certainly imbalanced, because I think we did need that one player. And I think Amrabat was better at McTominay than breaking up the play. So I still think that we kind of still need that player. Like like Ugarte can sort of do it, but he doesn't have the same physical body as an Amrabat or as a Scott McTominay in that aspect. Like, we need some, you know what we need? We need a younger, we need somebody in the form of a younger Rodri or a younger Casemiro. Like, one that is mobile, one that can break up the play well, but then one that can also help in the build-up and the attack. Like, we need one of those. And Ugarte is not that. Ugarte is going to be a pit bull. He's going to be able to break up the play, and I think he's going to be good defensively. But Ugarte does struggle with build-up play, and his attacking output is not very good when you look at his past statistics. He does not necessarily fit that bill. I still think he's a good option as a defensive midfielder, but we kind of need that overall player that can do kind of what you guys are saying, the dirty work, but also help in the attack. And we're still missing that. So, under Mourinho, McTominay was good though. Well, I think you could probably accustom that to, and I don't think he was necessarily that good, but I think maybe he was better in that position because of the way we were set up. Obviously under Mourinho we were very defensive, and we were very counter-attacking to an aspect. Obviously in the way we play now, and I think we've seen examples of that, so I will be fair, I mean, even at times, like Casemiro is very exposed. Casemiro is very, he gets very exposed by the way we play and by the imbalance in the team. So I think, if you try to play McTominay there, he's obviously going to get very exposed as well. So it's not all his fault, but what I'm saying is like, you know, we could have just went on to get somebody that was um a lot more like a lot just had a lot more to their game. Clueless Erik Ten Hag plays Maz as Cam. Clueless Erik Ten Hag plays a shifty a shitty player that McTominay is as Cam. The press would say something like this regardless. But Ugarte is faster than Amrabat. No, he is. But I think he just adds a little different dynamic but I think also the problem with Amrabat is that he is more of a breaker upper of play. And I still don't think he contributes as good going forward. We really need to again, I'm getting a little bit lost here, but I'm trying to say we need a midfielder that just is good all around. They need to be able to break up the play, but they need to be able to help with build up as well. They need to be good on both sides of the game. And we don't necessarily have that. I mean, I think Kobe is better at build up. And he's not bad at defense, but I don't think it's his strong suit. And I think he's better at build up. Eriksen is obviously supposed to be a cam, and is supposed to be like the playmaker. Bruno, he's supposed to be a playmaker and a cam. Mount is supposed to be a playmaker and cam. Casemiro is obviously defensive mid, and he's a little bit erratic with his build-up play. Albeit, I think, back in his younger days in his career, he was much, much better at it, but I think he's kind of declined in that aspect. And then we have Ugarte, who is not going to, just look at his statistics. It's not his strong suit. So we don't really have that kind of complete midfielder, which I think we need. Which some people might say that, a back Ten Hag. I think some people might say that that would have been Frankie de Jong. But, I would make the argument again that Frankie de Jong cannot be the only player in the world that can do that. It's just impossible. He cannot be the only player. There has to be another player out there. And why we haven't gone and tried to get them, or why we didn't get them, I will never understand. Well, younger, I mean, like, well, Cass is old, and so is Rodri. Like, they're both old. They're both old. I mean, they're literally at the end of their careers. I mean, younger in terms of, like, I don't know. For me, the perfect age for a footballer is around 26 years old. I think they're right in the middle of, they've developed good enough. They're not that young. They have a good amount of experience. Their ability is developed to a good amount, but then they can also offer you a good amount of years at the club, and they can kind of stick around because they could at least give you a good 5 seasons. And I think over the course of 5 seasons or so, it could really solidify the team as a unit. So yeah, and maybe he is a CM, Eriksen. Maybe he is a CM, but yeah, I can tell you good CMs that the board failed to transfer beyond Neves and Gravenberch. Well, those are other players as well. Like Neves is something like that where I think he has a good overall game. I think Gravenberch is something like that as well. That he has a good overall game and he can do both sides of the pitch. I'm sure that we have a whole list that I can't really remember right now. But yeah, Axe, if you want to tell us, go ahead. Because I'm sure there's so many, that we missed out on. And Frankie de Jong is probably another one. And but we do have like just a ridiculous amount of players that we could have probably gotten. And we either failed to get them or didn't go for them because they misidentified the players. But I'm talking about more about under INEOS now, like they have to go and get this player. Even regardless if Erik Ten Hag is the manager or not, I still think in any team that you have, you need that player anyway, and that midfield is imbalanced. So we would have to go get him regardless of the way we play, the formation we play. Yeah, I mean he really didn't get any of them. He really didn't get any of them, but it um but we still need one. We still need, regardless of if he is even the manager or not in the future. Like, we still have to go get one at some point. For any manager really, because I think it just balances the team and it balances the midfield. Um, Kleberson, who looked like a star player. Kleberson would look like a star player. I mean, yeah, yeah. But we do have this update about a young player named Chris Rigg that we've mentioned before. He's a 17-year-old Sunderland midfielder, so he would be one for the future. But Manchester United apparently could be set to make move for 17-year-old Sunderland midfielder Chris Rigg. United are closely monitoring Rigg and see him as a type of player who represents the amount of potential that United Chiefs want to bring into the squad. So again, INEOS still focusing on the youth. We have been looking at quite a numerous amount of youth players in and around the ages of 17, 18, 16, and 15. So yeah, I think this is one that we could, stash away in our pocket for the future. But I encourage this, and let's bring in as many as we can, because while we are building the project, it is important. I mean, for example, while we are currently building this project and we are trying to get to a level that we want to get to, Manchester United bring in this 17-year-old if he has the high potential that they believe he does. You put it in, let's just say, add 5 years to that. He'll be around 22. He can slot into the first team, into us building into the project into the next 3, 4, 5 years. So, I'm here for this, and I'm here for INEOS trying to snap up as many high potential youth players as possible, because I think in the long run, while it doesn't help our immediate situation per se, I think in the long run it will be important to the project and how successful the project can really become. Because the more we have, and the more we have, the more better chance that we have that some of them might become, top tier players or world class players. So we gotta try and get these players in. Axe is out of here. Axe, thank you for joining us. And big up to yourself. And we will catch you on the next one for sure. So we're not going to stream tomorrow, but we will stream. We will stream obviously after the match against West Ham and do the Red Devil recap. So we will do that, and then we will probably follow up with the stream on the Monday after the match. We'll kind of do an aftermath stream, and then kind of go over the news as well on that as well. So just so you guys are aware. So yeah. But let me just check the news real quick. I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Let me check to see if we got any updates while we went live, because we usually do get updates when we go live. But maybe not, because it is a Friday night. And let me see. So we've actually gotten no updates, which means that we can do the Erik Ten Hag press conference to kind of close out the show. So we're gonna do what Erik Ten Hag talked about. We're gonna go over, all his quotes, and we can just, have any input or discussion basically over what Erik Ten Hag said. So he started off the press conference by saying that Erik Ten Hag on plans from now until the West Ham game. He's saying, I think they asked him this yesterday actually, but or maybe he did it after the Europa League match. But he said that they're staying overnight and then they're going straight to London and then training on Saturday in London we have to be ready, short turnaround, and we expect, of course, Bruno to be back and hopefully also Johnny Evans, because they were obviously not available. Johnny Evans didn't travel with the squad, and Bruno obviously had his suspension through red card. So Bruno is going to be back in the team, of course, captain, and obviously has never been dropped. So that was probably the most obvious thing. And, you know, I would argue that after watching yesterday, we pretty much need him. As much as people might think he's a problem, as much as people might be upset by things he does on the pitch or whatever, clearly we don't have really somebody that can give us the level of input that he does in terms of energy, with the pressing, running around, you know, and getting involved in the game, especially when he's on his game. So Erik Ten Hag spoke on Manuel Ugarte, saying, for sure, the 6th position is a key position in your team. He has to learn this position in our game model. I think today is a step forward, so really pleased with his performance. And from here on, he has to build on. He then went to go speak on the midfield depth, saying, we have Casemiro. He's doing lately also, again, very good. We have people there who can fill the role. We have Kobe Mainu, and I think Christian Eriksen is doing brilliant in this moment. Well, Christian Eriksen has been playing very good, and he has been very impactful in his position. I do give him that, but Christian Eriksen is not. He's not somebody that you can replace Casemiro with. I think really, realistically, I think the only person that can really replace Casemiro is Ugarte. I think you can slot Mainu in there if you have to, but I don't think that's really his strong suit. And I think Mainu is way better if you allow him to get a little bit further up the pitch, near and around the box. Creative wise, I think he's a much better player than he is defensively. So they're not ideal. And I would like somebody else, and we kind of just spoke about this. So and Ten Hag talking about being patient with Manuel Ugarte and other new signings, saying you have to integrate them. He came late in the window, and then we had to integrate him during the competitions, and that takes time. He also said on the holding midfield role, we have to stay patient, but as you see, if the quality in that position is not right, it's very difficult for a team to control games, and then I don't even speak about dominating games. And then I don't even speak. I mean, I do get that, and that does make sense, but I mean, you have Casemiro and you have Ugarte. Like, I still think, like, I don't know, you know, what defensive midfielder do you want that is going to make some sort of magic that doesn't get exposed by the system that we play? Because it seems like whoever we put in there, they do eventually, in one game or another, do end up getting exposed, because it kind of seems like they are all kind of left on an island by themselves. So I don't think there's a magic player out there. I think Cass can play there, and I think Ugarte can do it as well. But I think the rest of the team kind of sort of struggles. So I don't really understand how you expect them to do kind of magic. You know. He also said on Manuel Ugarte, the position needs one who brings the quality all the time. We have to integrate him now in this team. Also, as I said, I'm pleased with his performance today, and from here on, he can build up. So, you know, encouraging, I guess, if you want to see Ugarte play more, because it seems like we're building up towards him basically, you know, cementing his position as the starter. And I think he is going to be a good player. I think he showed that yesterday in the performance. I think he's going to be a good and important player for us. So, Erik Ten Hag was asked on his reaction to the Spurs loss, which I don't understand why, because that was like 3-4 matches ago. But he was asked about it, and he said, I deny that game. I ignored that game against Spurs because we were downsized to 10 with a 1-0 losing position, and then the red card was overturned. So I totally ignore that game. That is not a fair assessment to the team to take this into consideration, because we didn't have the chance to bounce back. Well, I completely 100% disagree with that, Erik Ten Hag. I think that's an absolutely crazy statement from Erik Ten Hag to say. I mean, I don't know, how can you deny the match against Spurs, like, okay, I understand the red card and how that fucked us, going forward. But you can't totally deny the game because we conceded a goal in the first 2 minutes of the game. And then from that period up until the red card, we were absolutely dog shit and we got absolutely ripped apart. So how can you deny that game? How can you ignore that game? That's absolutely madness. That's absolutely madness. It doesn't make sense. We obviously were shit with a full 11 in that period. And then obviously it went to even more shit when we got the red card. But you can't deny that. You can't deny that. That's craziness. That's crazy talk. It's crazy talk. Erik Ten Hag spoke on his team's mentality, saying, "But you see, this team is resilient. This team is determined." I mean, there's lots of arguments against that, Eric. On Brentford, but in the tough 2 away games now in Europe, Porto and today again, because he said this about 8 hours ago. It came out. So, Porto and today again, this team has character, and this team showed fighting spirit and determination to win. I mean, I highly again, I disagree with that. I think they show some glimpses of character and determination, but there's also periods where they don't show strong enough character and determination, and sometimes they don't show fighting spirit and determination to win. I think yesterday there was large periods in the match where it looked like they were okay with the draw. I mean, the way they played, they looked like they were happy with the draw. There was no urgency to go and win that match. So I don't agree with that. I really don't. I don't think that's true. I don't think that matches what we see on the pitch. Plus the fact that we've played, and this is why the media have to do a better job, because when they ask him that question and he responds to this, then I would ask him a follow-up of, Eric, but what about you talk about fighting spirit and you talk about determination and you talk about resilience, but what about the fact that you've gone into 3 Europa League matches, you've taken the lead in all 3 Europa League matches, and you've come out of all 3 Europa League matches winless? So where is the determination? Where is the resilience? Where is the fighting spirit? Because clearly you might have it at certain points, but you are not doing it or showing it for 90 minutes. But they won't ask him a question like that because they're morons. Again, Erik Ten Hag on the Spurs game saying, "I tried to explain it was not fair to assess the team because there was a red card of one of our best players, our captain, and it was overturned. Everyone agreed it was not the right decision. That it was an injustice, and it is also an injustice to assess the team on that performance against Spurs." And again, I would hit back on the point of Bruno Fernandes got a red card right before halftime. Bruno Fernandes, we had a full 11 for 44 minutes or whatever it was. We conceded a goal 2 minutes into the match, and we got absolutely obliterated and cut open by Spurs and exposed in that 44-minute period. So while the result at the end of the game and losing and conceding 3 might be an injustice, sure, after the red card especially, because it wasn't a red card and he shouldn't have been sent off, and we can agree on that, we were still dog shit from the minute the whistle blew in the beginning of the match to the point that Bruno Fernandes got red carded. So, I don't really understand how he can necessarily say something like that. Like, I don't get that. I don't agree with it. I think it's a falsity. And I think he's pretty much talking out of his ass on that. I mean, that's nowhere near logical in any sort of way. I don't get it. Ten Hag was asked about injuries. He says, yes, that holds us back in our levels. I mean, we don't have that many injuries. Every team gets injuries. I made an exception for you last season. Because we had a ridiculous amount of injuries. We almost had a record-breaking amount of injuries. And that is acceptable when you're talking about injuries. Right now, at this moment, we don't have that many injuries. Some of that is partially our fault because we had two left backs, for example, that we know had suffered with extensive injury problems in one way or another, and we didn't go and get some form of a left back, and we decided we're going to wait on them. So that's our own fault. That has nothing to do with anything else. And then, we have an injury to Mason Mount, and we had an injury to Kobe Mainu, and we had maybe an injury to Maguire and here and there, but that's part of football. I mean, well, we're not going to be 100% fit, but we're not in an injury crisis, so I'm not going to take this excuse of injuries. But he says, yeah, that holds us back in our levels and also in our position in the league, because when you don't have the players available, you can't line up the best team. But you can't keep saying that, Eric, because when Man City have injuries and Arsenal have injuries, like Arsenal have just had injuries. I mean, they had Saka out, Odegaard's out. And, while they have dipped a little bit, they suffered a loss in there, but they still play fairly good. So what? So if we lose one or two or three players, all of a sudden everything that we've been trying to build and work towards goes out the window, and therefore we're going to lose matches because we've lost about three players. I mean, he said, and he continued on his quote and said, and that is what's holding us back in this moment. We need more players often available. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily what's holding us back. I think there's other factors that's what's holding us back. Like, I don't agree with your system and the style of play that we're playing, and I don't agree with some of the tactical decisions you're making. I think that's really holding us back. I think I think the lack of execution also from the players is holding us back. I don't think it's necessarily injuries. I think we have enough players to be able to perform better than the way we are playing. So, I don't agree with this. He continued on with injuries. We have to do better to get more available players, because we know when we have them, we are a really tough team to play, and when we have them, we can be really successful, and that is what we have shown over the last couple of months. And like, listen, I'm not shooting you down in that aspect. Like, obviously, the more players you have, the better, because the stronger we're going to be. But I don't think we're in a position where you can really cry injury crisis or injuries. Injuries are hurting us to the point of, the shit we've seen on the pitch. I think we have enough right now with the squad to not play the way we're playing. I don't think injuries are necessarily holding us back from playing some good type of football at this moment in time. Would it help if we had, the likes of Mount and Maguire and Kobe Mainu? Obviously, but these things are going to happen. We're not in a per se injury crisis like we were last season. So I don't really accept this, excuse that he's trying to come with these injuries again. Because I think it's totally different scenario. He did give us an update on Anthony. He did say on Anthony that he hasn't seen it. He said, I haven't seen it, but it's only when I have to tell you out of the second hand. So from the doctor and the physio who told me what they saw. So first I have to see the video before I can comment on this. I don't know if he's out for Sunday. Well, I believe he's out for Sunday if he had to get stretchered off. And he couldn't basically walk. So, but just back to the point on injuries, we can't use excuses as an excuse anymore. Like, we can't use these injuries as an excuse as to why we can't. Is that an acceptable excuse that we've gone into 3 European matches, had the lead in 3 European matches, and then came out of the 3 European matches without a win? I don't think those injuries are the real reason as to why we haven't been able to get a win in any of our Europa League games. Like, this excuse of these injuries, I don't think you can use it right now, because I don't think it's the determining factor. We have other problems and other reasons as to what is going on, and what is holding Manchester United back. So, yeah, those were his quotes. That he did out of his press conference. So, yeah, I highly disagree with them, and I think And just to kind of circle back to what we spoke about earlier, but before I do that, I'll read some of your comments because I know you guys were chatting in here and I kind of missed them. Alliance was saying something totally off subject. I was watching the game on CBS last night. What is Rio Cocker doing on American TV? He sounded like a tit. Well, that happens with American TV because it's not our it's not our it's not really like our first thing. Like obviously like NFL and NBA are more highly valued in the United States. So what happens is like a lot of these people that were involved in the European scene that maybe aren't considered great pundits or great, commentators or announcers or whatever, they end up finding their way over to America because we don't really have our own per se. We don't really have any good ones, so we kind of get the leftovers from Europe a lot. I mean, if you look at any American broadcast kind of thing, except for obviously on CBS on for the Champions League, but that's a whole different thing because that's kind of on Paramount and it's kind of an international thing. They obviously have like Jamie Carragher, Thierry Henry, and Micah Richards, but yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, just look at ESPN if you want to see. American ESPN has probably some of the worst commentator pundits for football you've ever seen. I mean, they're all shit and terrible, and they all have like the worst opinions. And they're pretty much morons. So, Richard saying, yeah, he should have been on the pension and paid the money I did to watch the match Spurs. Well, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how he cannot put results down to injury or lack of players. I mean, he can't. Not at this moment. I think he had an argument and a valid argument for it last season, but at this moment, absolutely not. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And Axe is saying, I mean, he can talk about the play style in an encouraging way. He knows it is bad, but it's good he tries to support the players and tries to point the small positives. He will keep repeating. And I mean, if he wants to go down that route, he can do that. And I do kind of understand that. But what I'm not accepting is that he's trying to use players not available and the players being injured in the list that we have as an excuse as to basically why we're not getting results and not playing well. And there's no way you're getting away with that. There's no way. I mean, I'm sure, I didn't see the reaction to it from the fan base, but I'm sure it's basically just straight rage because I don't think there's any Manchester United fan out there that's gonna, if they were asked the same question, I don't think there's one Manchester United fan out there that would give that answer. And so clearly, nobody's gonna buy into that. I hope he's out for Sunday. Who, Anthony? I don't think Anthony's gonna be back. I think the fact that he wasn't able to walk, and he had to be stretchered off. I don't think he's gonna be available. Ray saying Ugarte was outstanding. And Lion saying Charlie Davies was talking like he had an amazing career. He fell off quicker than Freddie Adu. Yeah, I mean, it's just bad. It's laughable. That's actually why I don't even watch. I don't even watch. I don't even watch like American broadcasting. If I can, through various different means and ways, I usually get Sky Sports, TNT, Sports. I have my ways around that. I'm obviously not going to delve into how I do that, but I do prefer to watch it on those networks as well. So I totally try to avoid the American whole broadcasting thing. I do enjoy the CBS Champions League one though. I think it's a good panel. I think they're funny. I think they have good chemistry though. So I think that one's probably the best one we got. I don't want to listen to, who's on NBC, Robbie Earl, and that other guy. I can't remember his name. I think Rebecca Lowe, she's okay, but she's just a presenter. She wasn't like in football in that aspect. The other guy with the glasses, Robbie, the other Robbie, because it's two Robbies, right? Robbie, the guy with the glasses, the skinny, the skinny white guy. I don't know his name. They're both terrible. They're both morons. So Yeah, I don't want to listen to them. And in any way. Um, but yeah. You know. And Rude Vanessa Roy, he put up a post on Twitter, basically saying we are Man United and we're never gonna stop. This came from Rude Vanessa Roy's actual Twitter account that he's got. And just to read some of the comments that's gone under that, somebody said, you know, and this has gotten 348 likes, 25,000 views. Rude, on behalf of all fans, we genuinely want Ten Hag gone. You're likely aware of how his arrogance and ignorance has blinded him, but he needs to go. Um, Somebody said you need to work more in creating a system / pattern of play. Choose one, either possession football, gegenpressing, or even counter transitional football to work with that. Manchester United lacks pattern of play, and it's so embarrassing. You know, people saying Ten Hag is ruining our culture for us. I had to check this wasn't a parody account, which it's not. You know, somebody said only 4 wins from 14 games is not good enough. Somebody said you got to help Ten Hag. Somebody asked him, bro, why can't our attackers score? What is happening? No one is asking y'all to stop. We actually enjoying Ten Hag. That's from a rival fan. Somebody said, we believe you, but not the manager. He should stop doing motivational speeches. Instead, focus on execution. We need results, not assurances. Yeah, so you kind of see the you kind of see what's going on here. Richard saying, as you know, Eric, my wife is from Texas. I told her you have a game called football you play with your hands, and a World Series you play with yourselves. That's what America that's what Americans do well with themselves. Well, we do. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Listen, it's still, some of the sports are still entertaining to watch, right? Like football with their hands. While albeit I don't understand it, there's many factors of American society. I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke. It is a good joke too. It was good. But yeah, there's many factors I don't really understand about maybe whatever you want to call American society or culture. Number one, I always hate how we use the metric system and not the imperial system. I don't get why we had to do that to ourselves. I don't get why we necessarily have to drive on the opposite side of the road while the rest of the world drives on, you know, on the other side. And I never understood why they call football here football when literally we use our hands. That was always my argument, even as a child, especially growing up watching actual football and Manchester United. I was like, it just doesn't make sense why they've called it football. Like they kind of wanted to hijack it. Meanwhile, I did a little bit of learning, and I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but apparently the term soccer that is used here actually originated in England or the UK or something like that, somewhere in Europe, but I think it was in England. And they used the term for a slight period in time, but then obviously they stopped using it. And then I guess somebody didn't give the memo to the Americans that it was no longer cool to use it. And we just continued on calling it soccer. Yeah, so I read that somewhere one time, and I should have went to go check up on it more to see if it was actually true or it was just a bunch of bullshit. But that was the first time I ever read that, and I was like, well, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if that was a thing, but when are we getting United We Cook? When I can get things under wrap. I think they're all good ideas for the future, but I think right now we really need to just kind of stay focused on building this aspect of the channel. So, you know, we have a long road ahead of us. We have a lot of things that we need to kind of accomplish. I think it's good to keep as an idea for future references, but I don't want to necessarily start. I think it's a little bit too early to try and branch out in certain aspects. But we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We don't. I don't necessarily want to go in that direction because it's a lot of different type of content and stuff. And I'm gonna be quite honest to you. We are struggling at the moment. The views are kind of very low. So I'm kind of just trying to focus on trying to get this into a solid place. And there's also other things that we need to incorporate. We need to or we need to what we need to do is we need to get more of the content that you guys suggested, where I take clips from the shows we do and kind of repost them in a shorter format, maybe 5 to 10 minute clips, post them on the channel, try and get more people to view the channel in that aspect. And then also maybe do a little bit of social media, like kind of do like, some TikTok clips, maybe some short clips, maybe post some clips to Instagram as well. So we really need to do all of that before we could start kind of branching out into other aspects, because I think those ideas are very good and they're very solid. And I do see that Richard does actually a very good, very Richard's always shouting me out on Twitter, and when he's on and shouting out and trying to support the channel and support my account. So he does do that. It's not easy. It's not easy. A lot of people think it's like easy. It's not. It's a very difficult place. It's a very saturated market, and to try and get yourself put in the front, and to try and get your voice or your channel, to get people to make it the top of the priority or the top of the list, it's not an easy thing. It takes a lot of time. So I do like those ideas, and I have kept them. Like, I have them written down and they are in my back pocket, but I just don't think it's like quite the right time to do those. I think, once this channel can get a little bit more established and we can get probably a larger viewing and stuff like that, I think then it's good to kind of branch out into that sort of aspect. I mean, even if you look at any other channel that really done it, you kind of have to focus on one thing and then you move forward. Like, there's other channels that when they started out, they kind of it was just that channel. Now, obviously, they've grown so exponentially that they can start branching out. They can make, just a more general football thing. They can do sort of a side podcast. They can do this, they can do that, because they kind of have the fan base for it. And then you can also pull in new viewers as well through that aspect, but they will have new viewers, and it is worth the time to actually make that content. If you do like shorts, for example, the reason why I don't want to do too many shorts is because shorts is good, but you might get a different sort of type of audience that's used to that certain type of content that's not necessarily going to help the longer form grow. So I am trying to figure it out. I am exploring how we can do it, because right now, and maybe, personally on me, because it does seem like, because I went on vacation, we kind of missed the boat a little bit, because apparently the transfer news and the transfer season and the transfer speculation clearly gets you the most exposure. I mean, it gets you literally the most views. It gets you, it gets you pushed more, which I find super interesting, because it's in the middle of the summer and you would expect to get lesser views, because a lot of people that stream and content, a lot of people are out vacation. They don't spend too much time indoors. They don't spend so much time on their mobile. But when I look at the numbers, the transfer period, the transfer window in the summer was the period where we were getting the most impressions, the most likes, the most live viewers, and it's sort of the opposite of what I kind of thought. So right now, we're not really getting pushed too much, and it is a struggle, but we're just gonna stick with it, because I think, eventually at some point we will come out of it. See stats over the eye test. Well, yeah, but you kind of got to use a mixture of it, right? You kind of got to use a mixture of the stats and the eye test, because stats are not always everything. Stats can also be misleading, but stats do help. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know, what necessarily what the bigger difference is between the transfer window and what I was necessarily setting up the show in terms of title, thumbnails, and words. I don't know what difference it makes in pushing compared to what we've been doing now, but clearly there's a key difference. So, I don't know what it is. I'm not too discouraged by it because again, we've only been doing this for in the grand scheme of things, it's been a short period of time. And I think we do very well for basically being an unknown channel relatively. We just gotta stay on the path and figure it out. There's a TED Talk out there that somewhere that can help. I'm sure there is. There's a TED Talk for everything. So, but yeah, Richard does a good job at trying to promote us and gives us shout outs and stuff. So I always appreciate that, Richard. So thank you very much because you take the time out of your day to do that. And you don't have to. So you do it out of the kindness of your heart and the will to do that as well. So I do appreciate every time you do it. Sometimes I see it late because I'm a little bit all over the place. Sometimes I don't go. And I get so many notifications that I don't know. Like today I seen your thing, but I seen it like 5 hours after you posted it because that's when I ended up going on the phone to check stuff over. Um, so let's do more on other media. Yeah, I think that's probably the best course of action that we're gonna have to try and do because we're gonna have to. I mean, I know it is important. But it's also still it. You know what it is, and I guess I gotta just do it. And not be so discouraged because it is hard because it's like when you don't have followers, right? It's almost like you're putting it into a void of nothingness. Like if you don't have followers on TikTok, I mean, TikTok's easy to get views, right? Like you get more views than maybe anything else. But like posting to Instagram is very hard. It's hard to get people to like and follow the content because you have to actually put in work and amass a following. Twitter is kind of a similar way. Now there's a little bit of workaround on Twitter that you can get kind of more people to see, but you have to invest a lot of time. And I'm only one man. And I've been busy with other stuff as well because I'm trying to improve some stuff in my life as well. So it's a lot to juggle. It's a lot to juggle. And yeah, and I know you enjoy the channel as well. Instagram, Rumble, Kick has no Manchester United channel. Well, yeah, I gotta look into that because there's some apps or some type of programs that you could kind of stream um you could kind of stream everywhere all at the same time, so we won't just stream just to YouTube. And I think we could kind of try that out when I do get the opportunity, because sometimes I always do watch the show with my father and stuff like that. Not the show, I watch the matches with my father, but I will make the promise of because I think watch alongs will help as well. So if my father's ever working, and I can't watch the match with him, I will then do a watch along for the match. So there's a possibility, not this week because it's on a Sunday. He won't be working, but for sure. But sometimes he has to work Saturdays, and if the matches are on Saturday, he won't be able to watch the match. So I could do them at that time too, but I don't really want to I don't really want to give that up watching the games with my father. So when I do get the chance, I'll do them for sure. So I watch a channel, America's Untold Stories. They simulcast on YouTube, Rumble, and TikTok, and that's what I'm saying. There is a way to do that. I just have to take some time, and set it up properly. And we also want to do the call-in show in the Discord. I think that will help if we add some features to it because maybe it'll pique a little bit more interest as well. So, I'm gonna try my utmost best. I think probably the best course of action is to maybe take a day or two. Maybe it's a day where we don't do a show. Sometime during the week, and not on the weekend, because on the weekend there's a lot that goes on in terms of there's football on. I like to watch other football as well. Um, so I also have a life. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. So, I think best course of action I'm gonna try and do is take one of the days during the week, so Monday to Friday somewhere. Obviously where Manchester United aren't playing and stuff like that. And when we don't do a show, and I'll try to attack one aspect. I could probably start with the whole Discord and call-in show, and then we could go from there, and kind of just build it in that way. You and your da would be cool. Who is that? Get da da on your show. Who is that? I don't know who that is. Oh, get my dad. Me and my dad. Yeah, I was thinking about we could do that at one point too as well. Um, but the thing is, we are in different houses. So I don't know how I would necessarily be able to get that. My father, yeah, I got it. I don't necessarily know how we would be able to do that. I was thinking maybe at one time, maybe we could do a live stream, at some point with doing a watch along or something. I think it would be very entertaining. That you would see my father blow his lid, at the way we play. We would definitely be demonetized. I will say that we would definitely be demonetized, if we were monetized, um with what goes on. But I still think that it would be entertaining for sure, and it would be good. So we'll figure it out. But I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna let you guys go, because it's been a good show, but it's run on long enough. It was kind of an unexpected stream, I think, on both ends. I tried to give it a little bit of a scheduling ahead, but sorry about that. I was gonna go live tomorrow and not today, but we went vice versa. You could get free StreamYard up to 4 people, 20 hours a month. You can be on both. Yeah, that's also, I know about StreamYard, and I wanted to start on StreamYard originally. And then I just went down the path of OBS and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, we have a lot of things that we can do. I think one of my problems is I kind of get overwhelmed, because I start thinking of like, well, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then I kind of think, I'm like, I don't really have time to do all of this, and this is going to be a lot of work. And then I kind of end up just not doing any of it, because I guess I overwhelm myself. So I got to really just work on picking one thing and doing that and getting that set and getting that going. And then we can focus on, the next thing, and not really thinking of like, I got to do 7 different things for the channel. Um, because yeah, and Mr. Richard is you also need a store. Red Devil merch. Well, that's another thing that I think, when the channel gets a bit bigger, because I think we're fairly small right now. But that's something that I know I can do, because I know somebody that can, number one, make merch for us, and also I know of a way to be able to set it up in terms of like a Shopify store or something like that. But we need to grow more a little bit. So very good idea, and it's a very good thing, and it's something that I thought of previously and I want to do, but I just don't feel like we're there yet. Like, I don't feel like it would really be worth it. I think the Discord, I think the call-in show, definitely worth it. You take the time to do that. I think it adds to the show. I think it adds to the channel. I think it adds to the community. So I think that's something that needs to be done, number one. And then I think also just the different types of content. I think those two things are probably the best course of action we go for first. And let's see how much we can actually grow the channel. Well, we do fairly good for nobody knowing us, right? So yeah, I'm not like, it's not negative like that, but we want more. We want more. And I'm like, why can't I find more like you people? I know there are people like you out there. Why can't I was like, we got a solid 10 people that are always here, that are always watching, that are always interactive. Um, I mean, for you guys, yeah, I guess, you know. But yeah, I'm like, if we can find another 10 to join, then we'll have 20. And I think if we get 20, we can then certainly get 30. And if we could get 30, we could get 40 for sure. So I don't know. We're just gonna continue going on because I think, you know, even when I started, you guys weren't here either. You guys found, I mean, it could be the time as well. That's also another factor. I mean, I'm in America. They obviously have, you know, we're probably catering to a UK audience as well. So it's a bit it's a bit it's a bit hard because I do know a lot of people that stream and just not football channels indirectly, but even for example, people that stream like the video game FIFA or FC, whatever you want to call it, like they stream during the day because it's the best to capture all sorts of like they stream at 10 o'clock in the morning US time, Eastern Standard Time, because it's good for the UK views, it's good for the European views, but then you also get the American views. They don't really stream later on in the day, kind of like how we do. Sometimes they go into it, but they have an earlier start stream. They stream at 11 or 12. And I could try that on some days, but some days I won't be able to do that. So, um, it may be too late. Yeah, it may be too late. Because if I do look at the statistics, per se, not statistics, but I mean like the demographic, right, of what we really usually catch. The demographic tells me in the audience that you know, we are pulling 24.5% of the United Kingdom. So the majority of views that we get is from the UK anyway. So I guess we might have to conform a little bit. I think we have to conform a little bit more to the best UK times because we're getting 6% US, we get 3.4% from Nigeria, 2.3% from South Africa, 1.7% from Ireland, and then we just have a bunch of you know, random places: Jamaica, Uganda, Malaysia, Brazil, Singapore, Canada. But those are on the lower numbers. The most we get is from the United Kingdom, so maybe we have to kind of change the times. And maybe this is too late. Um, I don't know. I was trying to aim for a period because I was like, if you do it during the day in the UK, I was like, I feel like most people are working. Um, but maybe there's a lot of people that they throw it on their phone, they listen to it. There's some people that they listen to it while they're at work and stuff like that. Tea time UK time might be something. Uh, is that is that is that 12 o'clock? Excuse me, because I'm not from the UK and I don't, you know, tea time. I is that 12? Is that 12 in the afternoon? Is that lunchtime basically? Is that our lunchtime? Is tea time, right? I'm not crazy. 18, 18-ish. Now you got me doing math. 17. So like five. Oh, lunchtime. Yeah, yeah, lunchtime. Yeah, we could try that. You know what? Maybe next week we'll do one of the streams. Obviously, you know, around the matches, there's nothing you could really do. When it's the match, it's the match, and it is what it is. Whatever the time is, it is. So you know, maybe next week for one of the topical shows, we could try and do one around you know, tea time and stuff like that. So yeah, uh, we could give that a go too. But maybe I'll start streaming around a little bit more. Um, I guess you would say random times. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, but because like I was saying before, you know what the thing was for me was that we've kept the same times, and that's why I was trying to figure out, you know, during the transfer window, we were still doing, I mean, in the beginning of the transfer window, because obviously I went on vacation, I went missing for a little bit, but even in the beginning, um, we still did the same times and we got way, way, way more views. So I don't know if that's just like a thing in the you know, the atmosphere of YouTube. Because you know, maybe people like to listen up on the news a lot more in terms of transfers. There's a lot more speculation. There's a lot more hype around it. But I don't know. I love this time, by the way. Yeah, I think it's still a good time as well. But maybe we got to try and you know, just switch it around a little bit and try and you know, maybe some people are available at that time that they're not available at this time. So maybe we could get a you know, some more people from that time, and get them part of the community. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see going forward. But everybody enjoy the rest of your Friday. It was a good talk. I love the little chats that we have at the end. I was gonna cut it short because I don't like the time to be so long. That's another thing. We might be doing shorter videos going forward because I think sometimes maybe they're a little bit too long. And then maybe people that aren't familiar with the channel, they see the length of the time and they're not too encouraged. We're not going to shorten it a whole lot, but I think I want to try and keep it anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half tops. But I do like the little chats at the end. And then sometimes we can let it go on a little bit longer, but you know, I think we need to kind of cap the time a little bit because I think when people that aren't so interested in the channel, to try and get them to buy into the channel when they see the long times, maybe they're not so interested, you know, because I don't like to say this, but you know, short form is kind of key for views, and you could kind of couple that with maybe some people's ability to stay focused on one long form topic. So Monday late night show. Yeah, I mean we can switch it around. We could do one late and then one at a different time, and we'll kind of schedule it that way. That way Monday will always be like a late night show. And then for example, maybe like a Wednesday will be at an earlier time or something like that. So we could do that too. I'm gonna do a little bit more research into it. I'm gonna try and you know what? Maybe it is dying, Richard, but I like long form, and I still believe in long form because I think there's a lot of people out there that they like long form. I mean, I think if you look at somebody like Joe Rogan or something, you know, he does long form. I think podcasts still do very good. So I think there is still, you know, I still think that there is a market for long form, and I think there is a good I think there is a good amount of people that do enjoy long form. But the problem is that if you get more clicks and you get more views, the algorithm will push it more. That way you can find more. So if we make it shorter, people might be a little bit more inclined to check out the channel, and give the channel a chance at least. But that's also why I'm gonna start and try and clip up little segments and repost them. So obviously for you guys that are always here and always interacting, you're gonna see me upload videos to the channel under the video section, not the live section, and it's gonna be probably like anywhere from a 5 to a 10-minute clip of, you know, this show as well. So obviously, you know, you don't have to necessarily watch it if you don't want to because we've already done this. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you want, just go on there, give it a click, let it run in the background if you really want, throw a comment under it, whatever you guys want to do to help. You know, I always appreciate it. But I'm gonna go eat dinner. I don't know what's on the menu for tonight. I think we got some type of rice and something else. I gotta go check out. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys this update. I like the little period at the end of the show where we could kind of just not, we could kind of talk about the community, the channel, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I want you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday night and enjoy your Saturday tomorrow because we're not going to go live. And then we will see you for the Red Devil recap after the match, and hopefully we get to 3 points. Real quick, score predictions against West Ham. I mean, I could see a 1-1. I could see a 1-1 draw. I can see it. I want United. If I'm being hopeful, 2-1 to United. 2-1 to United. If I'm being hopeful, I don't feel so confident. Lion says 1-1. Richard says 2-1 United. Yeah, I'm being hopeful. 2-1. Being hopeful because I don't feel so confident after the last match. But you know, I don't know. We have to see how it goes, and obviously, we'll see how I feel once the match has gone underway. But I could see a 1-1. I would hope for something like a 2-1. Obviously, I want United to win. We need the 3 points. We desperately need the 3 points. Ten Hag needs it as well. So Axe is out here just shooting for the stars, saying 0-4 to United. Well, Axe, I hope your prediction is the one that's the most correct, because if United go play West Ham and we win 4-0, you're gonna see me jumping up and down around on the stream. So yeah, hopefully, I hope so. We can't score. One. Ray says we can't score, but he's predicting 1-3 United. You know, we can't score, but we're gonna score 3 somehow. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of putting it at a 1-1. I think it's most likely to end at a 1-1. I would hope at least, the very least, a 2-1. If we can score more than 2, you know, then yeah. 3-1 United, Jordy Cruyff hat trick. Yeah. I don't know. But I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for being here, and hopefully we get the 3 points, and we will see you on the Red Devil recap after the match on Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your weekends, and again, thank you guys for being here and being involved and supporting the channel as always. And stay safe, and we will speak